Today, I'm going to be walking you through our Alteryx Agent Studio and Insights MCP use case for one of our retail clients. So first, I'm going to talk you through the problem. Then I'll talk you through how we designed our agent, and then finally the kind of prompts and our roadmap for the future. So what are we looking at? With our retail clients, we often run into this sort of problem where a district manager will review an underperforming store, and they'll always have this sort of question: what's going on? What should we do about it? And answering this requires a lot of data from a lot of different places in order to really identify the problem. And then it's even more effort to come up with a real sensible recommendation. So these are the real key pain points that our district managers will be facing. So when they talk to an analyst, what you're looking at is 5 to 7 days typical turnaround for just one store level year-on-year question, where the analyst is going to have to pull the data, build a revenue bridge, and with a review cycle, by the time the answer lands, the trading week is already gone. And the problem here is as well, the analyst's time is mostly going to be spent on the data preparation, reconciling tables. Recommendation work, however, only really fits into that final 30%, but it's really what the district manager wants. And with kind of traditional BI dashboards, what you usually get is really diagnosis, mainly. So you'll be able to see that gap between this year and the last. But as for this, decomposing it to work out the drivers across volume, price mix, and customer cohort, that's the sort of thing is much harder to communicate directly. What the district manager wants is a recommendation, and all you've really given them is a diagnosis. So Agent Studio and Insights MCP is a perfect kind of use case for this sort of problem, and that's what we wanted to test as part of this. So for the demonstration scope and prompt design, what we're looking at is a particular store that is down year on year, and the district manager wants to understand the cause to identify the corrective action. So we're looking at real eyewear retail data. We're looking at a single store for 2 fiscal years. We're looking across transaction, product, customer, and pricing history data. Long term, this is what we're going to be looking at, but you'll see for the demo, we're looking at just a subset of that for the revenue bridge. And what we want is a representative retail diagnostic question with measurable margin impact. And we've designed our agent, and we've got these 5 prompts as part of the total plan to go from headline all the way to synthesis and recommendation. So the headline is very simply, what's the net sales for year-on-year change? Then we're going to want this revenue bridge to identify these drivers, and then we're going to further break that down into brand winners and losers, then customer cohort decomposition, and then finally, when we get these recommendations on really price optimization is what we're looking for. So let's have a look at the architecture for the whole agent. So we have our data that we're pulling from the client's database. We're able to pull it directly with Alteryx Designer. We're able to reuse any sort of previous cleansing and joining, calculation of the elasticity. But it's important that for the agent that we have human readable field naming and we have tables structured for the agent consumption. And then we have the Alteryx One Auto Insights plugin as part of Alteryx Designer, so we easily just upload into Auto Insights, like fully integrated into to get the data set in there and have it create all of its automatic measures and prepare the data. So the Alteryx One Auto Insights acts as the agent's data access layer. So that's really important. The agent is going to be using the Auto Insights MCP, so all the different tools that Auto Insights has available to it, the agent's able to interface with those. And also, as part of this setup, we've obviously made sure to de-identify the data, and we have good governance generally to make sure we know where it comes from. There's the single source of truth because it's in the Designer desktop. We're not recreating other transformations. This desktop can output to other databases, so they're all using the same sort of transformation, same business logic. So now for the most interesting part really is the Agent Studio, setting up the agent. So I'll take you through this in detail later, but we have these custom instructions where we give the agent a role. We give them context on the data that it should be looking at, context on what we're really interested in, context for what the audience is. The expectations, the analytical framework. So, we're kind of looking at revenue bridge sort of stuff. We want these recommendations. Then output style to keep it concise, so we don't have to repeat ourselves every time. We just put these custom instructions in, so it's always kind of giving the same sort of outputs. And then very importantly is these guardrails to make sure that it doesn't extrapolate or do poor root cause analysis. It works within kind of the limits of the data we've given it, gives us the recommendations that we know it should be able to give us given the data that we've given it. And then, yeah, the Agent Studio with its own reasoning loop, this is how it interacts with the Auto Insights MCP, which is very, very cool. Using the tools and the guardrails as part of the architecture, as I mentioned, is very important. And then finally, we get these cool outputs, which you'll see in a moment. Some of these predictive visualizations, we get these recommendations, and also because there's not a black box here. We've set up the instructions. The analyst or the district manager can interact with it. They can review it. They can approve it before we roll it out to wider usage. So we always have the ability to just go back. We can fix it at any of these points to iteratively refine it because it's a fully integrated solution. So I won't spend too long on this slide, but it's just a breakdown of sort of the prompts and what we're looking at. So as part of the use case, we were testing the limits of Agent Studio a bit, and we'll still continue to, but we had these pass criterion to make sure that the KPI figures it was returning was always correct, that it could kind of read in the instructions. But this is just a breakdown of we want to make sure it's retrieving the correct comparison periods, which it has, the decomposition methodology that it's following our instructions, which it has. For these conditional logics of the top 5 brands, it's been doing very well on these. For 4 and 5, these are part of the later plan of price optimization, but it's looking very optimistic for the moment. Cool. And then so after we interact with it, I'll give you a demo of exactly how it works. So you just don't have to take my word from it from these slides. But we ask it these questions. We click on these prompts and it immediately gives us, or within seconds rather, gives us these outputs of how the net sales is decreased by 6.6%. And it often gives us kind of the biggest contributors as part of this breakdown. Then if we continue the conversation with this sort of prompt to build a year-on-year revenue bridge, it's going to identify that although transactions were up, the net sales were down, and then it's going to break down the units per transaction. So that's remained fairly stable. The average selling price has actually decreased. So that might be a place for investigation. And then for this sort of decomposition is where it gets much, much more powerful. Looking at the kind of sales mix, the brands that are mainly contributing, and more moving towards that price optimization recommendation layer of what the agent can do. So with this, I'll jump into the demo just to give you kind of a live look at how we set it up and how these prompts really work. So now what we're looking at is I've opened the agent up in Alteryx One Agent Studio. You can see it's very, very, very easy to set up actually. So we give it a name, we can describe it, and then we feed in the data sets that are relevant. These data sets, as I mentioned before, are uploaded from the Alteryx Desktop Designer. And then they land in Auto Insights, and you can just select them from that dropdown. Then the configuration is really the important part. If you remember from before, I said how we give it a role. So you're a retail analyst supporting the store manager. We give it some context. We tell the agent the sort of data that we're feeding in. We say the analytical framework that we're interested in, so like volume and price and mix. These definitions are very important, so you could feed in your business definitions or the kind of logic that you've tracked as part of your transformation. So net sales is the sum of net amount where sales or return equals S minus where sales or return equals R, and it's sophisticated enough to use this as part of the measure creation. Then we have this output style, so that we lead with the headline number, then the driver, then the so what. So really clear recommendations for the district manager. It's people that don't have a lot of time, and they can just come in with a agent that an analyst team or data team is set up, and they can immediately get these sort of recommendations. Then, as mentioned, guardrails very important, like kind of crucial step that you often miss out, and you'll experience it when using LLMs without guardrails. Is they'll hallucinate and they'll give you kind of erroneous recommendations based on data they don't have. So a very simple one that we have is don't extrapolate from less than 30 transactions. And you'll see when we give it certain prompts, like if we were to increase the price of a certain product, which one should we increase? And it will say, oh, there's not enough information there to give a valid recommendation. So that's really nice to see, especially when it's going to be, business facing. You don't want it to give silly recommendations. And then finally, we set up these starter prompts. So I only have the first three from our overall plan, where it will move towards price optimization. And then if I want to start interacting with the bot, I just click this preview button in the top right-hand corner. And then the prompts that I've written are already there. So what's the net sales, a year-on-year change for store 3239? Just going to click this button. So it does its usual thinking thing. So these buttons that turn up here, list data sets, list measures, list segments, these are different tools that are exposed by the Insights MCP that it's using in order to make these calculations. So that's how it's always consistent, it's always accurate. It's because it's plugging into the very powerful Auto Insights kind of software in order to make these amazing visualizations and recommendations. And you can see, like, within seconds, it's already given us the net sales for store were 21 million. They've decreased. Then the key contributors are these three different brands. It says their individual contributions. So kind of already gives an amazing insight that you wouldn't get in traditional BI. And then also you're able to open the Auto Insights page that powers this sort of this chat where you get these cool auto insights where you do get some more of the traditional BI sort of interface where you can filter it, you can add breakdowns. It has all these drivers broken down. You can add this auto insights to a preset report. So as you keep changing the data set, you can have access to it and you can share it with other people. So it's really very powerful. But with that, I'll jump back into the PowerPoint. So you've seen now what it can do. You've kind of seen the live demo. And now I'll take you through our kind of engagement roadmap and plan. So we're really at this diagnosis stress test phase at the moment, where we just want to make sure these prompts can run end to end, cross-check answers against other LLMs and against our own just like internal KPI testing. In the next 2 weeks, we're hoping to get this end-to-end use case. And then ultimately, following quarter, we're hoping to get this robust kind of price optimization agent where it can give price recommendation, including the elasticity, base price changes, and scenario testing. You'll see from what we have so far that it's quite optimistic to move quite seamlessly between phase 3 and phase 4 by the following quarter. So in summary, you'll see already that the Alteryx One Agent Studio, it already offers these very cool advantages over traditional BI and generic LLM, right? So traditional BI dashboards, you'll very easily have the what happened, these historical descriptive analysis, but it is very limited when you want to do this decomposition, especially when with managers and senior leadership. It always requires them being familiar with the tool in order for it to work. Well, these sorts of conditional logic requires much measure building in order to get that right, or hand filtering. With the generic LLM, you wouldn't trust it with your data. So it's got a conversational interface over enterprise data. But yeah, rarely does it have an analytical framework. It assumes defaults around fiscal year. So that's important to note, that as part of the Alteryx One Auto Insights and the setup, you can set up like what is the expected fiscal year. You can define all of these different rules that it will constantly reference, so you don't have to repeat yourself over and over and over again. So it becomes as easy as just that simple prompt. And naturally, they lack these sorts of governance controls and these instructions that, again, plug in and train the agent, that sort of set of instructions. Whereas Alteryx One Agent Studio, you get these multi-step problems. You get access to these incredible Auto Insights MCP tools. custom instructions, and it's that native auto insights integration does really provide that governed auditable access. You can interrogate it, you can share it, and you can have these presets reports as I kind of already showed you. So it really does provide this analyst level reasoning at scale, to ultimately solve our use case, right? Of ordinarily it would take a week for just one store, whereas we can empower these agents to be across all the stores, for all the district managers to access them, ask these questions, and get answers in kind of seconds, without a million different custom dashboards, growing our dashboard estate, anything like that. Thank you so much for paying attention. I hope that our use case has been valuable for you, and you've kind of seen the value in Alteryx One Agent Studio.